Phala network, or the PHA token, is the cryptocurrency of the day. It's going up way more than others. The question is why? Who is buying here? Who's selling here? Is this really fundamentally driven, or is this a pump and dump? Let's have a look at the on-chain metrics most people are not considering. So this is what we are looking at. Phala network is crushing it. In the last month, we went up by more than 3x. And pretty much all of those gains had been made in the last week alone. But that didn't happen without drama. At one point, Phala network was more than double the price to then afterwards crash down to less than 10 cents. Now there's another rally. But this price chart is actually deceiving, because this chart would imply that there's another 2x, maybe 2.5x from here to go back to prior heights. But that's not the case. Have a look at the market cap chart. The market cap chart is already at an all-time high. In other words, there's now more capital in Phala network than has ever been. The difference between the price chart and the market cap chart can be explained with an expanding supply. There's now way more PHA tokens around than there used to be. Now, the more floating tokens there are, the more capital is required in order to push up a price. But let's have a look at the data. Most people just look at websites and they try to get a market edge by reading whatever the team is putting out. This is, I believe, not the right way to go about this. This is information everybody has. We want to look at the information most people are not considering. Now, on Twitter, or the X platform, we've got more than 130,000 followers. On Telegram, we've got 11,000 members. And the GitHub repository, so the place where the tech developers are submitting their changes, that's still active. There has been an update 14 hours ago, another update 2 days ago, another update 3 days ago. So there's clearly still something happening. This is not just a dead project. The token is available on 2 chains. Most of the capital is on the Ethereum chain, where we've got 23,000 holders. Now, not all of those holders are created equal, right? Some wallets might just hold a few cents of the token. Others might hold hundreds of thousands of dollars of the token. So let's look into this in more detail. In the last 24 hours, where the price went up by 75%, we actually saw less buyers than sellers. So this tells us that the buyers tend to move more capital than the sellers do. Or in other words, the big guys are getting in. Now, not all of the price discovery happens on chain though, right? There is a lot of trading volume in black boxes in the centralized exchanges. Most trading volume happens on Gate.io and OKX, but the token can also be bought on KuCoin, for example. On top of that, we've also got the derivative market, so bets on the price, perpetual futures. That's dominated by Bybit and MEXC. Now, here are the on-chain metrics, the number of retail investors versus whale investors over time. So again, in total, we've got 23,000 holders, but there's less than 3,000 holders that have more than 2,000 tokens. Now, 2,000 tokens at the current price is roughly $1,000 worth of the token. For the chart in the middle, we go at 10x in minimum holding, so that's now $10,000 worth of the token. On the right, another 10x, so $100,000 worth of the token. We see initial adoption, then a massive sell-off by retail, and then a recovery. We see a similar pattern for the medium-sized retail wallets, but the recovery was stronger. We see even an all-time high for the whale wallets. So relatively speaking, the whale wallets bought in the most recently. We can also see how attention goes in waves. So this is now the number of buyers and sellers over time. Currently, we are rather on the higher end, and the ratio of buyers versus sellers long-term doesn't really change much. Now, the macro picture very much looks like we are at a pivotal moment. It seems like we are very close to an altcoin rotation, because the risk to reward for Bitcoin at this moment is not that great. Have a look at this long-term Bitcoin chart and check out those 2 red lines. At those points of time, the upside potential for Bitcoin wasn't that great anymore relative to the downside. So this is a very long-term chart, right? We did not yet hit the top, but we are relatively close to the top. Now, those lines are not scientific whatsoever, right? They're simply just curved lines drawn on the Bitcoin chart, but they tend to connect the tops relatively well, and they tend to connect the bottoms relatively well. Currently, we are very close to such a high risk, poor reward situation for Bitcoin one more time. Now again, have a look at those 2 red lines. Those points in time correspond with those red lines over here. This is the Bitcoin dominance. The Bitcoin dominance crashed when the risk to reward for Bitcoin wasn't that great anymore. What does a Bitcoin dominance crash mean? It means that Bitcoin as a fraction of all of crypto is going down. In other words, it's altcoin season. The altcoins outperform Bitcoin at that point in time. Now, historically, that rotation happened when Bitcoin dominance was at around 70%. This time it seems to happen a bit earlier, but it looks like we have already started the rotation again, because the risk to reward is not that great at the moment for Bitcoin. People want to get the multiple X returns, and they're not anymore that easy to be made with Bitcoin. And so what asset class performed the best in the last 7 days? It is the risk on categories. It's things like frog themed tokens or AI memes. And so the largest of the AI meme tokens are things like Fartcoin, which is currently at 44 cents, which had been covered on this channel when it was still at 5 cents. Or it's things like Goceus Maximus, which is currently at 56 cents, and it was at above $1.30 at one point, which was covered on this channel when we were still at 25 cents. Or here, another AI meme, AI16Z, currently at 67 cents. And we talked about this here at 28 cents. Now, how did I discover tokens like this that early when they still make multiple X returns? The answer lies in on-chain analytics and in wallet tracking. I like to track wallets of other insiders, of influencers, of top traders. And so have a look at the recent trade. I published this in the Gerhard Trade channel on December 10th, how I'm buying some Alchemist AI. And since then, the price appreciated by more than 40%. And it is the best performing token on Solana in the last 24 hours. This is not random. This is not luck. This is all happening because of wallet tracking, because we get transactions whenever influencers and top traders are buying. Here, have a look at this recent trade by Crypto Gains. He bought Morph AI, and this is the chart. This is a channel of Crypto Gains. He's got 140,000 subscribers, and he talks about small cap cryptocurrencies regularly. And we are tracking 55 of his wallets. Or have a look at Crypto Banter. They've got 1.1 million subscribers. When they talk about a token, especially a small cap cryptocurrency, of course, this generates a lot of attention. Attention turns into purchases. Purchases turn into rising prices. And so we are tracking 33 of Crypto Banter's wallets. Or check out Alex Becker, 1.5 million subscribers. Through on-chain analytics, we found 12 of his wallets. Those are not official wallets, right? Those are wallets that we find through various means. Now, what kind of means? It's explained over here in this tutorial course. It's 8 videos in total. It's explaining how to find influencer wallets, how to track influencer wallets, and how to then interpret the signals that we get from the tracking. It's all part of the premium membership of this channel. Premium is not just about wallet tracking, it's also about on-chain analytics, it's also about backtesting, it's also about risk mitigation and portfolio diversification. There's more than 100 tutorial videos in total in premium. And so if you want to stop just chasing the trends, if you want to be early, then feel free to check it out. It's currently $165 per month. There's also a 1-week money back guarantee. So in case you don't like premium, in case you don't learn anything, just message me within the first 7 days and I'll refund you 100%. There's really zero risk for you. Now, does it make sense to buy Phala network now after this rally? Does it still make sense to buy relatively elevated prices? Let's have a look. Here is what happened in the last month. The price 3x and we are at 47 cents. And we can see that especially in the last few days, the number of new users shot up a lot. So before, on every single day, we only had like 20 or 30 new wallets that interacted with the token. In the last few days, that's rather around 200, maybe even 400. But here is what I do not like. Again, we've got the retail investors and the whale investors over here, but this time the charts only look at the last month. So before we looked at all-time charts, right, years and years of data, this here just looks at the last month. And we don't see how the number of retail investors grew during that time. We rather see how in the last few days the number of retail investors went down. That's even more pronounced for medium-sized retail, and it's also existing for the whales. So how is it possible that a price goes up by 3x when the number of investors is not growing? How can the market cap be at all-time highs when there's no new excitement by anybody on chain? I believe there is some manipulation going on. I believe those black boxes are toying around with the price. And whenever they manipulate the price and the market cap, after a while, it tends to trend down again. I am not saying that we have to turn around directly. We could see further manipulation. But I think the likelihood of PHA being lower in 3, 4, 5 months compared to today is very, very high. I think the cycle will simply repeat. We see our pumps and our dumps, and a lot of that volatility creates trading volume that creates money for the centralized exchanges, that creates also liquidation fees, a lot of nice incomes, but not necessarily a great asset to own. If you got some value out of this video, feel free to subscribe. I publish videos regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you in the next video, or see you in premium. Cheers!